Hello, and welcome to Public Interest Podcast, episode 13, with your host, Jordan Cooper, where we interview politicians, activists, advocates, and others who seek to improve the world. Today, we are with Northern Virginia State Delegate Alfonso Lopez, a Democrat in Northern Virginia. So, good afternoon, Delegate Lopez. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Lucky 13.
Awesome. So, I wanted to start off by asking you, what are you currently doing or have you ever done to advance the public interest, and why?
I'd like to think that everything I've done and working in nonprofits and working as a political staffer, as a campaign staffer, and working on boards and commissions and as a member of the House of Delegates and working in the Obama administration and have all in some ways moved the ball forward and fought for the public good. I'm very proud of the work I did in the environmental community back in the late 1990s, working on the National Ambient Air Quality Standards with the Clean Air Act reauthorization, and then with the Safe Drinking Act reauthorization, that helped advance the ball from a policy perspective regarding environmental health in the United States. And then also the work I did on the Kyoto Protocol with regard to climate change. And although that failed in the end, we were able to really sort of galvanize thought around what needed to be done regarding climate change at the federal level.
So climate change is something that I think really came to the national attention with Al Gore's movie. You're talking about a decade or two before Inconvenient Truth, in the early 90s.
No. This is the late 90s.
Okay, the late 90s.
Late 90s, 97, 98, 99, when the United States environmental community was trying to help gear up towards the Kyoto Protocols and what was going on there and what that meant with regarding international agreements regarding greenhouse gas reductions.
So I think, explain a little bit why these bills matter. How did you get involved in the environmental movement? Was it as an attorney? You were an environmental law attorney? Please.
No, I'd be happy to. It was actually at Vassar College, your alma mater and my alma mater. I worked one summer with Daniel Peck, professor of American Studies and Environmental Studies at Vassar College, and we were. He was a great. Daniel Peck is a great academic and author dealing with issues of American studies and culture, but also he focused on Henry David Thoreau and the work of Henry David Thoreau. And I actually worked with Dr. Peck as a Ford Scholar the summer between my junior and senior year on a book he was doing for Penguin called Thoreau, a year in the life of Thoreau's journals, 1851, and it was basically a real critical analysis of that year in his journals. Now, Thoreau was famous for sort of documenting almost every aspect of his life, but 1851 was a very important year in those journals, and Dr. Peck did a lot of, I think, forward-thinking analysis of what Thoreau was getting at with his overall theories, and but also it was very important for how it addressed the interplay between the human condition and the natural environment. So I started thinking about environmental issues while I was in college. And then I sort of fell under the spell of a guy by the name of Oliver Houck, Ollie Houck, in law school, who was the head of the famous Tulane University Law School Environmental Law Department. Or it's actually not a department, it was
Center.
It was their law clinic. And so instead of going to other places for law school, I went to Tulane to sort of study with him and some other professors who were doing incredible forward-looking work on environmental policy and environmental law.
Like saving Thoreau's Walden Pond in the bayou.
Actually, a little bit different. It's not less historic preservation, more about environmental justice.
Okay.
And the idea that the Mississippi River Valley is the home of some of the most toxic waste dumps and chemical dumps in the country, if not the world.
Oh my God.
And inevitably, the dumps were being done in poorer communities, minority communities. And so using national and state law and regulations regarding environmental protection to help communities. So I really adored that aspect of my legal education, and I just took every environmental law class I could. And I got a background in environmental law, and I got an environmental law certificate, actually. Earned one in law school as well as my law degree.
How did it make you feel to know that those who are least able to protect themselves, the indigent, those who are just struggling to get by, it was their communities where the environmental hazardous dumping was being done?
No, that's the problem. You've got these huge corporations have in the past felt that it was perfectly fine to either legally or illegally release hazardous materials in these areas because they're not going to raise a fuss about it. It's not my backyard. It's someone else's backyard. And there's this inherent injustice about that. And it actually goes on to this day. You're finding, interestingly enough, the coal ash piles in Virginia, if you actually look at where they're all located in very poor areas. The one place in Northern Virginia is along the Route 1 corridor, which is a very diverse but also socioeconomically poor area of Northern Virginia. So what I did was I got very involved in politics, and I got very involved in...
As a consequence?
Or coincidentally, while I was in law school, I got very involved in local and state campaigns.
In Louisiana
and in Virginia. But then my first summer of law school, instead of actually going to a law firm, which was I was planning on doing, a big one in D.C., I on a lark, honestly, applied for the first intern class in the Clinton White House in 1993. And I had heard from a classmate of mine who'd been an intern in the Bush White House that she had done this program and it was amazing. And I said, well, do you think they still have that? And she said they probably do. And so I inquired. And lo and behold, I got a phone call from the White House on a random weekday very early in the morning. And I thought it was a joke, and I hung up. I hung up the phone. And because I thought it was a girlfriend playing a prank on me, and the woman called back and offered me a position as one of the first interns in the White House intern class in 1993. And so that summer, by the end of the Clinton administration, they had 600 people in half a summer at a piece. But that first class was all summer long, and it was only 60 or so folks. And it was just an amazing group. You had PhD candidates, and you had law students, and you had Fulbright scholars and Rhodes scholars and all these incredible students. And I remember the Domestic Policy Council only had 4 interns. There was an MPP student or MPA student at the Woodrow Wilson School of Public Policy at Princeton. There was a Yale law student, and there was a PhD candidate in political science at the University of Arkansas, and there was me. And so our orientation happens, and then we go to the Domestic Policy Council where their orientation happens, and the person doing it is Bruce Reed. And if you know politics and policy in Virginia, in the United States, not just D.C., Bruce Reed is a very big deal. And he was the deputy assistant to the president for domestic policy. And he's in this gorgeous office in the old executive office building, and he walks us through getting our badges and everything, and he gives everyone desks, and I'm wondering, where's my desk? Everyone's got a desk. What about me? But they finally figured it out. I'm not the guy they think I am. They're kicking me out right now. And my desk was actually not in the old executive office building. It was in the West Wing of the White House.
So you were like right in the West Wing TV show.
Well, not that. But
you were living it in the 90s.
I was 23 years old. Sitting in a tiny desk on the second floor of the West Wing of the White House. And my boss was Deputy Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy, Bill Galston, who shared an office the size of my car, which is tiny, with Gene Sperling.
So it just doesn't get any better than that.
No, I am.
How old were you during this time?
I was 23 years old.
So how many 23-year-olds get to see
not many.
The ship of state, like right there?
I was right there. And so literally, in the second floor of the West Wing, in the part I was at, there's Carol Rasco, who's the assistant to the president for domestic policy, had one office. And the other side of the hall was Bob Rubin, who was became the Secretary of Treasury, but before that, at that time, was the head of the NEC, the National Economic Council. And then Sylvia Burwell, who is currently the Secretary of HHS for Obama, was an assistant to Rubin, and then literally as far away as like 15 feet was the West Wing office of Hillary Clinton. And so Hillary Clinton was, and then Rahm Emanuel, Gene Sperling, George Stephanopoulos were all there, and young guys.
So how did this shape your idea, not only of public service, but your idea of justice that you were first talking about in Louisiana?
Well, what happened was first off, it was a little mind-blowing. I walked on air all summer long, and I basically said to myself, I have to get back here. And it changed my course from being, I will go try to get a job as a corporate attorney someplace, to I'm going to try to put my ideals and the things that I care about into practice.
Now, how much student debt did you have after that?
I had around just under $200,000 worth of debt.
And yet, despite having all that debt, and did you get a job offer from a law firm?
I didn't really pursue one because I finished law school in 5 semesters.
Did you say DLA Piper had offered you?
No. What had happened was, it's not, DLA Piper didn't exist then. It was Piper Rudnick. But what had happened was I finished law school in 5 semesters and spent my last semester of law school working at the Council on Environmental Quality at the White House. So I went from the Domestic Policy Council to the Council on Environmental Quality, which deals with toxic waste dumps, brownfield sites, remediation of Superfund sites, Clean Air Act, things like that, and was really in the weeds with Katie McGinty, who was the head of CEQ at the time, who's right now running for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. And my boss then was Brad Campbell, who went on to be the head of DEQ for New Jersey. And then people like David Sandilow and Shelley Fiddler, who was the chief of staff, who went on to Van Ness Feldman and done incredible work there.
Funny how everybody,
yeah, it's fascinating how, like, as an intern at the age of 24, 25, I was exposed to just amazing people.
And you were one of those people.
Well, no, I was a guy who got coffee.
But here's the thing, Alfonso. You had $198,000 in student debt after college and grad school, and you had an opportunity to go become a corporate lawyer and make big bucks to repay that debt, and yet you chose to forego the option that would help get you out of debt in order to do public service. Why?
I didn't pursue the legal career so much because I felt something that Obama kept talking about in his campaign, which I always, it's overblown for someone like me to say, but I always resonated with me when they first said it. It was very, very, it touched me. It said the fierce urgency of now. Even though I am a small voice, I can have my voice be heard. So I remember as an intern in the White House at the age of 23, my small voice was helping Bill Galston, was helping Carol Rasco. It was doing research to assist them in doing amazing things. And would I rather do that and try to add my voice to the debate and try to add my voice in some small way to public policy in the United States and really focus on stuff I really cared about? Or did I want to sit in a conference room with 15 other young attorneys with, incredible academic backgrounds who are all very smart and wait for an 18-wheeler to back up to do document review and basically pour through hundreds of boxes of documents to try to find needles in haystacks. It's and bill hours. And I felt like there was a better way for me, and I'm not knocking the legal world at all, but there was a better way for me.
That's the politician in you right there.
No, that's not the politician. It's the truth. That's the truth. Because I know countless attorneys who do amazing work and who fight incredibly well for their clients. Mm-hmm. But for me, what really got me going was the nuances of public policy, and was getting in the weeds on how you could shape public policy and how politics played in that, and learning in a very small way through the nonprofit community and the environmental community, and working as a member of that lobbying corps of national environmental lobbyists, like from the American Heart Association, who work on Clean Air Act issues, to NRDC, to Sierra Club, mm-hmm. Dan Lashoff, Greg Werkheiser, not Werkheiser. I forget his name, but Lucky Wentworth, just these incredible environmental leaders of the 80s and 90s, who I sort of learned from by watching them lobby, like Brian Cohen.
You're mentioning a lot of names.
Uh-huh.
It seems to me, and maybe you can elaborate on this, that relationships drive a lot of politics and public service. And I've even heard it said that potentially a dearth of personal relationships in the current Congress may play some role in the lack of effectiveness of the Congress. Could you talk to me a little bit? All these names, all these individuals swirling around in your past, mm-hmm. Could you tell me a little bit about the role that these relationships have had in making society better?
Oh, well, the old adage is that, or not, that's not an adage, but it was sort of the lubricant of what made Congress work, was friendships across the aisle. And back in the day, I remember the days when Bob Michael, the minority leader, and Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House, would go to dinner every night, and they would go play golf on weekends, and their wives would have parties together. They'd invite.
These are Democrats and Republicans.
Democrats. It was Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the 1980s, and Bob Michael, the minority leader of the House of Delegates, the House of Representatives.
Minority being the Republican Party.
The Republican Party, mm-hmm. would work together on, and there was a loyal opposition. You weren't trying to demonize the opposition. You weren't trying to demonize your opponent or question their patriotism because they disagreed with you on a point of policy.
You just tried to outmaneuver them.
Exactly, or win elections. But they understood the value of compromise. And they understood that you could use appropriations or earmarks to barter and cut deals and trade. So if I needed a bridge in my district and you needed a vote on this education bill, then I wasn't too opposed to that. Well, we could cut a deal. And right now, we've gotten to the point, especially since the mid-'90s, where the relationships are so hard. There's so little trust. And you've got a situation where there's no value in having those relationships or building a policy initiative where you can get to yes on all sides.
Have you been working to build trust not only with your Democratic colleagues but also Republican colleagues in the Richmond legislature?
Oh, well, yeah, that's the key to the realm. I mean, right now, we've been gerrymandered into oblivion in the House of Delegates in Virginia. And
now, what does gerrymandering mean?
Gerrymandering means the drawing of lines for how you allocate. There are 8.3 million people in Virginia. There are 100 members of the House of Delegates. Every member of the House of Delegates has a district that has 83,000 people in it, approximately, usually within 1 percentage point of each other. And you have to draw the lines, the boundary lines of where each of those districts are so that you have 83,000 people in it. Well, depending on how you draw those lines, you can make a district either very, very red or very, very blue or a deep shade of purple.
So it could be kind of the elected officials choosing the electorate as opposed to electorate choosing elected officials.
Exactly. And so what's happened is with the advent of technology and literally being able to use gerrymandering data with laser-like precision, the Republicans have been very good at drawing lines that do not, I think, personally represent the values of Virginia. Take, for instance, the fact that in every statewide election for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years or so far, Democrats have won every one, 52, 53, 54% of the vote. But how is it that we have a House of Delegates that is 66 Republicans and 34 Democrats? That is incredibly good gerrymandering.
And in fact, they were so good that didn't they gerrymander Eric Cantor out of his own congressional district?
That is up to interpretation, but
it was too conservative for him.
Eric had an incredibly conservative district.
And for our listeners, Eric Cantor would have been the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives following John Boehner as a congressman from Central Virginia had he not lost in a primary to a Tea Party challenger.
Right.
So back onto the topic that you said about, and I want to wrap things up. We're reaching the end of the podcast, but
really, that was fast.
Back at the end of the back to the topic of trust with other members in the legislature.
Right.
Okay. So you said that...
No, you have to build trust. You have to have relationships. I mean, the kiss of death in any legislative body is not having trust of the people you serve with, not having relationships with the people you serve with. You have to have those things. Even if I was in a very strong majority, I would have to have... It would be in everyone's best interest, not just my best interest, but the entire Commonwealth's best interest for us to have relationships across the aisle.
And are you able to form those?
Yes, I don't. Well, yes, I don't. Let me just finish. I don't have the market corner like cornered on all the best ideas in the world, and I only come to the best ideas from a policy perspective if I'm working with Republicans and Democrats to know what the best ideas might be or what we can collectively find to be the best ideas. So what I've tried to do is have good relationships with as many Republicans and Democrats as I can.
Are they receptive to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's funny is everyone in public thinks, well, oh, you guys must be on the verge of killing each other all the time. But the fact is I have very good relationships, especially with people from my freshman class. It was right after the gerrymandering. So 2011 is when everyone got elected. The first year was 2012. And it was a bad year for Democrats. There were 16 freshmen in the House of Delegates, and there were 15 Republicans, and I was the only Democrat. And so, but incredibly good people, like Peter Farrell, Randy Minshew, Rick Hodges.
So you became friends with these men?
Yeah, well, very much so, because we've sort of heard the chimes at midnight, literally. I mean, we were in the House of Delegates sort of hammering out legislative ideas and legislation until 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Even if you disagree with them, you still find a way to respect them.
Of course, you have to. Chris Head, incredibly nice guy. Joseph Yost. Honestly, there's one individual I adore, a guy by the name of Israel O'Quinn from Bristol. He from Southwest Virginia. He and I are both the same. We both served 3 terms. He and I will literally take time out to just hang out. He sends me ties. I send him ties. He's got an amazing family. He's an amazing guy. He is as conservative as you can be, and I am Mr. Democrat. But I think he's an amazing guy. He's a wonderful guy. And I don't know what it was. I found out I played college baseball. I was a third baseman and a catcher, and he was a first baseman in his college. And so one day, during session, when literally there was nothing going on and only 4 people were meeting, we were all like 136 people were waiting for those 4 people. He said, I got my glove. Do you have your glove?
Yeah.
I think it's in my car. Go get it. So we'll play catch. And we'll just talk about Virginia. We'll talk about policy. We'll talk about issues. We'll talk about our families. And I really love that. I really love the fact that, he and I will go around the side of the Capitol between the governor's mansion and the Patrick Henry building and the House side of the Capitol and get on the grass and just play catch. And we've done it now at some point. Every year we've been in the House of Delegates for 5 years now, at least once.
And you're the whip, right?
I'm the minority whip for the House of Delegates.
And a whip is somebody who counts votes and makes sure that the Democratic Party, in your case, the Democratic Party has enough votes to push a piece of legislation through.
That's part of it, but we're also about messaging. We're about making sure no punch on the floor goes unanswered, about making sure that we always have, if someone throws a spurious factoid out, we are able to counter it really quickly. So I'm helping to also make sure that we have people getting up on the floor and speaking. And so yet,
as kind of the one of the individuals in leadership for the Democratic Party, you're still able to have these relationships, and even though you guys are adversaries in the chamber, you're still able to be friends outside.
Yes, I mean my counterpart Jackson Miller will come into my office on a almost daily basis, and we will just talk and hang out. And most of the time, it's me making fun of him or him making fun of me. But the thing is, I disagree with Jackson on nearly every issue. That is a substantial difference between Republicans and Democrats.
But you do have something in common.
We enjoy each other's company.
And but you're both delegates, and you're both there to advance the public interest.
Right. It's one thing that Tim Kaine, my old boss, used to say. And he used to say, we all care about Virginia being a better place. We just have different dreams about how to get there. So if we focus on the 88% of the issues where we all agree, where we get 100-0 votes, we can do a lot of good. And if we sort of, we got to focus on the 12%. And we got to put the time in to make sure we can try to get the yes and try to have some kind of solid compromise. But there's so much more that we agree on than we disagree on. So, my job is to sort of move the ball up the hill and to fight for the issues that we care about and to fight for the vision of Virginia that we have. But at the end of the day, it's not to demonize the opposition, and it's not to, by extension, drag Virginia down.
Well, you heard it straight from the mouth of Delegate Alfonso Lopez, who said that public service is something that takes us potentially beyond partisanship. It's about improving the state of the community and finding places where there is consensus, where we do agree with those who hold different opinions from each other. And public service is something that is almost a lifelong passion. And whether you find yourself in elected office, whether you find yourself in student, whether you have student debt, whether you are doing a little bit better in life, whether you're a cabinet official, whether you're anything, there's always an opportunity to make a bridge, build a relationship, and move our country a little bit forward. That is what Delegate Lopez's life has been all about, what it continues to be this day. And may it be an inspiration to you, listeners, as you consider your own path, public service. This has been episode 13 of Public Interest Podcast with your host, Jordan Cooper, where we interview politicians, activists, and advocates and others who seek to improve the world. Thank you so much. We'll join you next time.